very supportive of this this partnership. I think it's going to be really good for everybody. My questions relate to the change in the housing action plan from at least maintain to increase. And I see that there's various sentences been included in the consultation document, but I'm concerned about one that I'm reading on page 61. It's our page 61, and it's the development of the portfolio, and it says the number of housing for older people units will be maintained. Now that is not what was in our former policy. It was at least be maintained. So I need that corrected, because that's not, we are signalling that, we have signalled always that we are interested in increasing. So that's a change to a former housing action plan policy.
So through the chair, so I think we're getting down to words, which is fair enough, and I've heard a request for the inclusion of at least, yep. And I know we've had some discussion around this, and I think the resolutions enable, I can't recall, but enables one or two people to look after a few editorial tidy-ups, and I think that if that one meets with legal and audit satisfaction, we'd be happy to include that.
At least I'm comfortable with that. It doesn't really, sort of add or detract too much from it, so at least is probably a little bit more directive than just the same. My hope and expectation here is that what we finally conclude delivers with the partner, that we get the opportunity of building more. It's just that we're not doing the building. We want to see it done by the partner. So if it delivers more, then it's bloody marvellous. Right, any other comments, councillors? Councillor Bill and then Councillor Mike.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Kat, just to you, you've had engagement with our tenants, our clients. Has that been one-to-one? The last thing we want to do is when they read the words refurbish, sell, shift, change, new, to give them any concern or worries or angst. So has there been one-on-one verbal or written communication to each of our clients, giving them some certainty and security going forward?
Through the chair, we're working with our tenants reference group, which is elected representatives of across the tenant groups, and we've also had a tenant newsletter which has been self-created, and we've worked with that group to make sure that every step of the partnership has gone through that newsletter and been delivered. We also have staff that are on the ground, our social housing coordinators, who are fully briefed across the project and have been answering and keeping questions, keeping the tenants informed of the process.
Is there a level of comfort amongst our clients out there around this proposal?
Yes.
Good.
The tenants are very interested in this proposal.
I can understand that. Thank you.
Right, batting line up, I'll get Councillor Mike and then Councillor Linda. So Councillor Mike.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this is quite a significant step and needs to be undertaken with due consideration and care. I note that the Council currently owns 1,412 units. It's not clear how many of these units are currently out of commission, been out of commission for some time. However, a partnership is being explored, to use the word in the report. I think it's a little bit more definite than that, and what I'm concerned about is that if we're going to public consultation, there needs to be a proper process. Mr Mayor, I have to say, after attending quite a lot of have your say meetings, I found them really quite unsatisfactory as a public consultation process. The information was highly controlled and the meetings were choreographed really. I would much prefer, if we're going into formal consultation, we went back to the way governments and local governments normally formally consult, with proper hearings. And I think that is the best way to deal with this form of consultation in regard to such a serious matter. I am concerned that in some ways we are following Mr English's example, and in essence this is the first step to privatising that housing stock, which I do not believe is a good thing. However, I will keep an open mind, but I would ask that the council, when it consults on the alienation of strategic assets, does so in a formal way, and have your say. Events are certainly not that. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Linda.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I absolutely support this. I think that, in contrary to what's been just said, this can't be privatised, because the only way it can work if it is in partnership with community housing providers, because that's where we get the government funding.
I haven't opposed that.
Of which the whole project can't work. So if it went to private people, they couldn't get that. So I think this is the whole issue here is that partnership, and I think that makes a huge difference, that we're going to really lift the level of people's quality of life with these, a lot of rebuilding and refurbishing. What I'm very pleased to see in E, that we're going to have your say events locally. I think that is much better for people to be in their own space, in their own home territory, I hope, where they feel comfortable. And Councillor Hulse and myself did this in Waitakere when we were looking at the same kind of process before amalgamation, where it got stalled. And what we found was that the formal hearing process was very intimidating. It felt staged and choreographed, whereas when you're meeting with people in their little, their community rooms or a local community hall, and you've got cups of tea, and they can really engage with you. And I'm very pleased to see that you've got elected members involved here, because we will be making the decision, and we need to own that responsibility and front up to our older adult tenants. It's really important that they get the chance to say what they want to say to us, be it good or bad, and I'm very pleased to see that, and I'd be very happy to be involved, Mr Chairman.
Very good. Councillor Cowell.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, and mine's probably a couple of things, points have been already clarified, and that's what Councillor Cashmore raised, because I do have some concern that often we don't really get to some of those tenants and advise them. I'm saying that though, some do get a wee bit confused, and I'm aware of that. But I take a contrary view to Councillor Lee's opinion in regards to the have your says. I know you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, but I have to say that all the have your says I've been to, we had a fair and frank discussion at the tables, and open and transparent, and actually I welcomed that, as opposed to the old way we did our hearings. So every table I sat at, it was a robust and meaningful discussion. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Penn.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the critical nature here is that we are dealing with, exactly as Councillor Cooper said, we're dealing with some of our members of our community who are pretty vulnerable and can be quite vulnerable to bad politics and untrue. Well, coming from a councillor who never sold their housing, I feel very proud of that. Not subject to bad politics out west. So the reality is that our members of these villages that we still own do not need to be frightened by words like alienation of council assets. We are not selling their homes. We're actually improving their lives and making those villages better. And if we can't sit around the table with them in their place and in their homes and in their community halls to have an honest conversation, we're going to end up with a whole lot of our vulnerable members of our community frightened by media and frightened by bad politics. So I absolutely support, and Kat, to you and your team who have these
good relationships with all of our people who live in our older adult villages. I think you need to help our community lead the right process for them and not drag them into the town hall for formal sittings, which for most of our community are not only unfriendly but undoable.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, I think we've had good say. Councillor Mike, you've had your say?
Mayor, could we, in light of discussion, could we, in regard to these consultations, which are not really going to be formal, it seems, could we have members and the Have Your Say meetings, given the advice, the ruling from the High Court, or Court of Appeal, sorry, what consultation really means legally? And that is a willingness to listen to other opinions and not make predetermined decisions as we seem to be doing here. Thank you.
Oh, rubbish. Takes one to know one.
Okay, right. Well, that's a useful
Just
piece
leave
of
them in their
advice.
grotty flats then,
Now,
shall
order, please. I think we're pretty much done with the discussion. Now, do we need to hear from the Office of the Auditor General? You've given us tick off. Are you delighted with what we're doing here?
I have no view on what you're doing.
Ah, wonderful. An excellent reply.
Haere mai, we can't hear you.
And would you just come in here, because I mean you come all the way here and blah blah. So why don't we just yeah. Here you go.
Sorry, I wasn't planning on fronting. I was just trying to see whether it went through. So the document meets our requirements, and we will be issuing the opinion that you have been provided with.
Yep.
So as long as it gets passed through here, we're all good from our perspective to go.
Very good. Okay. Right. Well, I think that sort of dots the I's, cross the T's. Then I'll move that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Seconder, Councillor Cathy, do you want to second this? Yep. Right. Very good. Right. That's done. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to...
Mr. Mayor, could my vote be recorded?